Ladies and gentlemen, seekers of the hidden truths of the psyche, let us embark on an exploration of a phenomenon as ancient as it is modern, narcissism. In my psychoanalytic work, I have described narcissism as a fundamental aspect of human development, a primal force of self-love that shapes the ego. Yet, when this force becomes excessive, it transforms into a pathology, a distortion of the self that casts a shadow over relationships, work, and the inner life. To spot and overcome narcissism, whether in another or within oneself, is to confront the deepest workings of the unconscious, where the ego's desires and defenses collide. Narcissism, named after the myth of Narcissus, who fell in love with his own reflection, is not merely vanity or arrogance. It is a fixation of the libido upon the self, a turning inward that starves the capacity for genuine connection. In my essay on Narcissism, An Introduction, 1914, I proposed that narcissism exists in all of us as a primary state, but in health, the libido flows outward to others, balancing self-love with object love. In pathology, this balance is disrupted, and the narcissist becomes a prisoner of their own ego, demanding admiration while offering little in return. You have encountered such individuals, have you not? The colleague who seeks constant praise yet dismisses your contributions, the partner who craves adoration but recoils from vulnerability, the friend whose world revolves around their own needs. Their behavior stirs unease, resentment, or even self-doubt within you. But narcissism is not only an external force, it lurks within, in the moments when you prioritize your ego over others, when you seek validation to mask an inner fragility. To spot narcissism is to observe the interplay of ego and unconscious drives. To overcome it is to master the art of psychic balance. In this discourse, we will explore how to identify narcissistic traits, understand their roots in the unconscious, and reclaim your inner sovereignty in their presence. Drawing from my psychoanalytic theories and the wisdom of the Stoics, those philosophers who understood the power of controlling one's own mind, we will navigate this complex terrain. Let us begin by illuminating the signs of narcissism, for recognition is the first step toward liberation. To manage the impact of narcissism, you must first learn to recognize it. Narcissism is not a singular trait, but a constellation of behaviors, rooted in the unconscious dynamics of the ego. Let us examine the key markers, drawing from my psychoanalytic observations and clinical experience. The grandiose ego. The narcissist presents an inflated sense of self, what I call the grandiose ego. This is not mere confidence, but an exaggerated belief in their own importance, often unsupported by reality. They speak as though their ideas are uniquely brilliant, their achievements unparalleled. In a professional setting, they may claim credit for collective work. In personal relationships, they demand to be the center of attention. This grandiosity is a defense, a shield against an unconscious sense of inferiority, what I term the narcissistic wound. Consider a case from my practice. A man, whom I shall call Herr K., entered analysis convinced of his intellectual superiority. He spoke at length of his accomplishments, dismissing colleagues as mediocre. Yet, in moments of candor, he revealed a deep fear of failure, a dread that others might see him as ordinary. His grandiosity was a mask, concealing a fragile ego that could not bear scrutiny. To spot this trait, observe whether the individual's self-praise aligns with objective reality or serves to drown out self-doubt. Lack of empathy. Another hallmark is a profound lack of empathy. The narcissist's libido is so fixated on the self that they struggle to perceive others' emotions or needs. They may feign concern, but their actions betray indifference. A partner may recount their struggles, only to find the narcissist redirecting the conversation to themselves. A colleague may ignore your contributions, focusing only on their own agenda. This is not mere selfishness, but a psychic incapacity to invest libido in others. In my work, I observed this in Frau L., A patient who spoke endlessly of her own desires but grew impatient when others shared theirs. When confronted, she expressed bewilderment, unable to grasp why her indifference caused pain. To identify this trait, notice whether the individual responds to your emotions with genuine understanding or shifts focus to themselves. Their inability to connect reflects a libido trapped within the ego's confines. Need for admiration. The narcissist craves admiration as a child craves milk. This is not a desire for mutual respect, but a demand for constant validation. They seek applause, flattery, or deference, and react with rage or withdrawal when it is withheld. This need stems from what I call narcissistic supply, the external affirmation that sustains their fragile ego. Without it, they face the abyss of their own insecurities. A patient, Fräulein M., exemplified this. She surrounded herself with admirers, yet became sullen when not praised. When a friend failed to compliment her, she interpreted it as betrayal. To spot this, observe whether the individual seeks excessive validation, perhaps fishing for compliments or reacting poorly to criticism. Their dependence on external praise reveals the emptiness beneath their grandiosity. Manipulation and control. Narcissists often employ manipulation to maintain their ego's dominance. They may use charm, guilt, or intimidation to bend others to their will. This is not conscious malice, but an unconscious drive to protect the self from perceived threats. In relationships, they may gaslight, making you doubt your reality. In work, they may undermine to maintain superiority. This stems from the ego's fear of losing control, a fear rooted in the narcissistic wound. In my Vienna practice, I treated Hers, who manipulated colleagues by alternating praise with subtle criticism, ensuring their loyalty while keeping them off balance. To identify this, watch for patterns of control. Does the individual shift blame, distort truths, or use flattery strategically? Their tactics reveal an ego desperate to maintain its illusion of supremacy. Sensitivity to criticism. Finally, the narcissist is exquisitely sensitive to criticism. Even mild feedback can provoke rage, defensiveness, or withdrawal, for it threatens the fragile edifice of their self-image. This is not mere pride, but a terror of exposure. The narcissistic wound, buried in the unconscious, recoils at any hint of inadequacy. In analysis, I observed patients who deflected criticism by attacking others, preserving their ego at all costs. To spot this, notice how the individual responds to feedback. Do they accept it with grace, or do they lash out, deny, or withdraw? Their reaction is a window into their psychic fragility, a sign that their self-love is not secure but precarious. Let us pause for a reflective exercise to sharpen your ability to spot narcissism. Find a quiet space, if possible, and take a notebook or hold these questions in your mind. Close your eyes and breathe deeply 3 times, grounding yourself in the present. Now, recall a person in your life who may exhibit narcissistic traits, perhaps a colleague, friend, or family member. Picture a specific interaction where their behavior felt overwhelming or draining. Reflect on these questions. Did they display grandiosity? Did they exaggerate their importance or dismiss others' contributions? Did they lack empathy? Did they ignore your feelings or redirect the conversation to themselves? Did they seek admiration? Did they fish for praise or react poorly to its absence? Did they manipulate? Did they use charm, guilt, or criticism to control the interaction? How did they respond to feedback? Did they accept it, or did they deflect or attack? Write or visualize their behaviors, noting specific examples. Now, turn inward. How did their actions make you feel? Did you feel diminished, angry, or unseen? Ask your unconscious, what does this reaction reveal about my own needs or fears? Perhaps their grandiosity touched your own insecurity, or their lack of empathy mirrored a fear of being undervalued. Hold these insights gently, without judgment. Finally, affirm, I see clearly, and I choose my response. My worth is not defined by another's ego. Carry this clarity into your interactions, observing narcissistic traits with detachment rather than reaction. This exercise is a practice in awareness, a tool to navigate the narcissist's influence. To overcome narcissism's impact, you must understand its origins in the psyche. In my psychoanalytic theory, narcissism arises from the interplay of the ego, id, and superego, shaped by early experiences and unconscious drives. The narcissistic wound. At the heart of narcissism lies a wound, a primal injury to the ego's sense of self. In childhood, we all seek love and validation from our caregivers. When this is withheld through neglect, criticism, or inconsistent affection, the child internalizes a sense of inadequacy. To cope, they inflate their ego, creating a grandiose self-image to shield against the pain. This is the narcissistic wound, a scar buried in the unconscious that drives pathological behavior. In my practice, I treated Frau R., whose mother praised her only when she excelled. As an adult, she sought constant admiration, unable to tolerate perceived slights. Her grandiosity was a defense against the childhood fear that she was unlovable. Understanding this wound humanizes the narcissist. They are not evil, but wounded, their behavior a desperate attempt to protect a fragile ego. The libido's misplacement. Narcissism is a disorder of the libido, the psychic energy that fuels love and desire. In health, the libido flows outward, investing in relationships and creative pursuits. In narcissism, it turns inward, fixating on the ego. This narcissistic libido starves the capacity for object love, leaving the individual isolated within their own self-image. Their need for admiration is an attempt to replenish this libido, but it is a hollow substitute for genuine connection. This dynamic explains the narcissist's paradox. They crave others' attention yet cannot truly connect. In analysis, I observed patients who sought love but recoiled from vulnerability, fearing it would expose their inadequacy. To overcome their influence, recognize that their demands are not about you, but about their own psychic starvation. The role of the superego. The superego, the internalized moral compass, plays a complex role in narcissism. In some narcissists, the superego is harsh, demanding perfection and punishing perceived failures. This drives their grandiosity, as they strive to meet an unattainable ideal. In others, the superego is weak, allowing the ego to run unchecked, justifying selfish behavior. Both dynamics stem from early experiences where love was conditional, teaching the child that only perfection earns acceptance. In my work with Herr T., a businessman, I saw this duality. He oscillated between self-aggrandizement and self-criticism, driven by a superego that demanded he be flawless. To spot narcissism, observe whether the individual's behavior reflects an internal battle with an unforgiving ideal or a lack of moral restraint. Projection and transference. Narcissists often project their insecurities onto others, seeing in you what they cannot face in themselves. In psychoanalytic terms, this is transference, where unconscious feelings are displaced onto another. The narcissist who criticizes you may be projecting their own fear of inadequacy. Their praise may be a manipulation to secure your loyalty. Understanding this projection allows you to detach, seeing their behavior as a reflection of their psyche, not yours. In my sessions, I often encountered transference with narcissistic patients. They idealized me as a savior, only to devalue me when I failed to mirror their grandiosity. To overcome this, maintain awareness of their projections, refusing to internalize their judgments. To overcome the narcissist's influence, you must protect your psychic integrity while fostering resilience. This requires strategies rooted in psychoanalysis and Stoic wisdom, focusing on self-awareness, boundaries, and inner sovereignty. Self-awareness, confronting your own ego. The first step is to examine your own psyche, for narcissism in others often triggers your own unconscious wounds. When a narcissist's behavior wounds you, It touches what I call the complex, a cluster of emotions tied to past experiences. Perhaps their grandiosity echoes a childhood where you felt unseen. Their criticism revives a fear of failure. To overcome this, you must make the unconscious conscious. Reflect on your reactions. Why does the narcissist's behavior stir you? In my practice, I encouraged patients to journal their emotions after interactions with difficult individuals. For example, a patient, Fräulein B, felt diminished by her narcissistic employer. Through analysis, she realized his criticism echoed her father's disapproval, triggering a complex of inadequacy. By naming this, she began to detach, seeing his behavior as his own, not a reflection of her worth. Practice this. After an encounter with a narcissist, ask, what does this reaction reveal about my own fears or needs? This self-awareness frees you from their psychic grip, allowing you to respond rather than react. Setting boundaries, the ego's defense. Boundaries are essential in managing narcissists, for they protect your libido from being drained. The narcissist's demands, whether for attention, validation, or control, can overwhelm your psychic resources. To counter this, set clear limits, rooted in what I call the reality principle, the ego's ability to navigate the world with reason. In my practice, I advise patients to use firm, neutral language. For example, to a narcissistic colleague who demands your time, say, I value our collaboration, but I can only discuss this at a scheduled time. To a partner who seeks constant admiration, say, I appreciate you, but I need space to focus on my own work. These boundaries are not aggressive. They are assertions of your psychic sovereignty. The Stoics reinforce this. Epictetus taught, you have power over your mind, not outside events. When a narcissist reacts poorly to your boundaries, perhaps with anger or manipulation, recognize it as their ego's defense, not your failure. Stand firm, knowing your time and energy are yours to allocate. Detachment, the Stoic shield. To overcome narcissism, practice detachment, not indifference, but a refusal to let the narcissist's behavior define your worth. The Stoics call this apatheia, a state of inner calm, unaffected by external chaos. When a narcissist criticizes or manipulates, see it as their projection, not your reality. This detachment is not coldness, but liberation. In my work, I saw this with Herr W., who was tormented by a narcissistic superior. Through analysis, he learned to view his superior's criticism as a projection of insecurity, not a truth about himself. This shift allowed him to respond with clarity, preserving his inner peace. Practice this by affirming, their words are their own, my worth is mine. Building resilience, the libido's redirection. To thrive in the presence of narcissism, redirect your libido toward growth. Engage in activities that nourish your psyche, creative pursuits, meaningful relationships, self-reflection. In my concept of sublimation, I describe how the libido can be channeled into higher purposes, transforming raw drives into creativity and connection. By investing in yourself, you build resilience against the narcissist's drain. In my own life, I found solace in writing and analysis when faced with difficult colleagues. By redirecting my energy to my work, I preserved my psychic vitality. Identify what nourishes you, perhaps writing, nature, or deep conversations, and prioritize these. They are your psychic anchors, grounding you against the narcissist's pull. Let us engage in a second exercise to build resilience. Find a quiet space and breathe deeply 3 times, centering yourself. Recall a recent interaction with a narcissistic individual. Perhaps their grandiosity, criticism, or manipulation left you unsettled. Picture the scene vividly, but as an observer, not a participant. Ask yourself, what did their behavior trigger in me? Was it anger, shame, or self-doubt? What complex does this reveal? Does their criticism echo a past wound? their need for admiration, a fear of being unseen. How can I detach? Imagine their words as a projection, a cloud passing over your inner sky. Visualize letting them go, affirming, their behavior is their own, my peace is mine. Now, envision responding with a boundary, perhaps saying, I hear you, but I need to focus on my own priorities. Feel the strength of this choice. Finally, affirm, I am whole, regardless of others' demands. My libido flows toward my growth. Carry this affirmation into your interactions, using it as a shield against narcissistic influence. Narcissism is not only an external force, it resides within us all, in the ego's natural tendency to prioritize itself. To overcome it, you must confront your own narcissistic tendencies, integrating them into a balanced psyche. Recognizing your own narcissism, we all have moments of narcissistic behavior, seeking excessive validation, dismissing others' perspectives, or clinging to a grandiose self-image. These stem from the ego's fear of vulnerability, a fear rooted in the narcissistic wound. In my practice, I encourage patients to examine their motives. Do you seek praise to mask insecurity? Do you dismiss others to feel superior? These are not sins, but signals from the unconscious. I recall a moment in my own life. During my early rivalry with Jung, I insisted on the primacy of my theories, dismissing his ideas as fanciful. In reflection, I saw this as my own narcissism, a defense against the fear that my work might be overshadowed. To spot this within yourself, ask, when do I seek to elevate myself at others' expense? What fear drives this? Integrating the ego. To overcome internal narcissism, you must integrate the ego with the unconscious, a process akin to Jung's individuation but rooted in my concept of working through. This involves facing the narcissistic wound, acknowledging the fear of inadequacy that fuels your need for validation. In analysis, I guided patients to explore these fears through free association, asking, what lies beneath my need to be seen as special? Practice this. Reflect on a moment when you acted narcissistically, perhaps interrupting to assert your opinion or seeking praise. Ask your unconscious, what was I protecting? The answer may reveal a wound from childhood, a moment when you felt unseen or unworthy. By naming this, you begin to heal, redirecting your libido toward authentic self-expression. Cultivating humility. Humility is the antidote to narcissism, not self-denial, but the courage to embrace your imperfections. In my later years, I learned this through my own errors. My insistence on certain theories blinded me to others' insights, but by acknowledging my limits, I grew as a thinker. To cultivate humility, practice gratitude for others' contributions, listen without the need to dominate, and accept criticism as a path to growth. In my sessions, I encourage patients to perform small acts of humility, acknowledging a colleague's idea, apologizing for a slight, or admitting uncertainty. These acts weaken the ego's grip, allowing the libido to flow outward in connection. My dear friends, to spot and overcome narcissism is to free your psyche from the tyranny of the ego, both others and your own. By recognizing the signs: grandiosity, lack of empathy, need for admiration, manipulation, and sensitivity to criticism, you gain clarity. By understanding its roots in the narcissistic wound, you cultivate compassion, and by setting boundaries, practicing detachment, and confronting your own ego, you reclaim your inner sovereignty. As you move forward, carry this question: how can I live in alignment with my true self, free from the narcissist's influence? Let it guide your interactions, your reflections, your growth. Your psyche is a sacred space. Guard it with wisdom, and let your libido flow toward connection, creativity, and truth. We end with an affirmation: I am whole, beyond the ego's demands. I choose clarity, compassion, and courage. Go forth, my companions, and let your psyche shine as a beacon of authenticity in a world of shadows.